or answer a lot of those questions up front. Um, so we will also be sharing links on the chat to everybody. So you'll be able to see those helpful links as they come in, and we'll get through as many questions as we can. Anything that we don't answer on this call will be included in our Q&A that is published to our website and emailed to everybody who registered shortly after the session. So you'll be able to find this recording, the slide deck, and the Q&A on our website later today. And with that, I will go ahead and introduce Phil Spessart. He is our Director of the Unemployment Insurance Division.
All
Phil.
right. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us this morning. We know that it's a very difficult, stressful time for many of you at this point in time. As Jessica mentioned, you'll have numerous questions, no doubt, in the course of today's town hall. If you type those in on the Q&A, we have several other subject matter experts here to provide you some answers related to that. Although, again, a couple of those questions, I can tell you the first question that I already saw is something that we already have in one of our slides to be able to answer for all of you as we move along. Joining me today in part of the presentation will be Jeff Newcomb. He is our Customer Services Branch Manager. We will go through a couple of slides here. I'll basically discuss some of the basic facts for unemployment insurance, some basic unemployment insurance eligibility. Then we'll discuss understanding the claim process, some unemployment resources for you, some reemployment support, and then we'll move into the frequently asked questions and or live questions today. All right, so for all of you, unemployment insurance benefits can last up to 26 weeks in Colorado. There may be some things that impact that. It may be lesser. It will never be greater than 26 weeks. Benefits paid out are about 55% of what your wages were that you were used to earning on a weekly basis. And very important here, because people often think that employers can prohibit them from filing a claim. An employer may not prohibit you from filing an unemployment insurance claim at any time. It's a violation of the law for an employer to prohibit you from filing an unemployment insurance claim. For those of you who wonder how long will it take before I may see some money on a claim or receive decisions, that generally takes 4 to 6 weeks to process an unemployment insurance claim while adjudicating a claim. Each claim has unique variables to it that require certain fact finding. So anywhere from that 4 to 6 weeks. Important to understand in Colorado is that only employers pay into unemployment insurance benefits based on the wages that you were paid. It's against the law in Colorado for an employer to withhold any of your wages to pay unemployment insurance benefits or their premiums that are due. So it is an eligibility program, so it's not just free money. There's a process that has to occur here. So in order to be qualified initially or monetarily eligible for an unemployment insurance claim, you must have had $2,500 at least during something known as a base period. It's legally defined as the first 4 of the last 5 quarters before your claim started. If we put that in plain English for you as much as possible today, if you're filing a claim today or filed here in early October, your claim was filed in Q4 of 2025. That means we're going to look at the last 6 months of 2024 and the first 6 months of 2025 to determine the value of your claim. So a base period, or that period that you needed to earn the $2,500, would have been July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2025. In order to receive compensation, your job loss had to be through no fault of your own. Generally, that's a layoff, a furlough. However, that does not prevent somebody who was discharged or who quit from being deemed to be eligible for benefits. You must also be available and actively seeking work during any week, unless that is waived. Benefits, again, are determined based on your base period. For those of you that were furloughed, we want to treat you as job attached on these claims because you have a job you were supposed to return to once this furlough ends. So that's going to constitute job attachment. We will walk you through a little bit what we want you to do when you're filing your claim to ensure job attachment, because that means you're not required to make an active search for work. If you were laid off, quit, or discharged, you are required to search for work on a weekly basis. When you're searching for work, you're also required to register with connectingcolorado.gov. We recommend that you do that immediately after filing your unemployment insurance claim. Make sure when you're filling out that information on Connecting Colorado that you click the box saying that you have an unemployment insurance claim. That will just ensure easier speed on processing of a claim. It says to do it within 7 days of filing a claim and begin actively seeking work. Again, if you were laid off, again, the recommendation is do that immediately after you file your unemployment insurance claim. Very important here is that on a weekly basis, on Sundays is when this will first be available after you've filed, is the opportunity to certify or request payment for the prior week. And so you need to certify for payment every week in your claim, or it will close, and then you will need to reopen it in MyUI Plus. If that claim closes and you have to reopen, you've lost the ability to try to collect some of that period of time previously. So one of the smartest things to do is just take a calendar or put it on your phone in your calendar, and every Sunday note, need to certify weeks for this week. For you federal employees, make sure you're filing in the correct state, which is wherever the location of was for your last duty station. If you have your SF50, this will be located on that SF50. We're going to explain to you that a couple of forms are really important for you to try to obtain, which is both an SF8 and an SF50. It just helps the processing on your claim and to ensure that we are reaching out to the appropriate agency. If we're not reaching out to the correct agency, it will slow down processing on your claim. Right, up next is who can apply for UI. Anyone. Again, remember, your employer cannot stop you or prevent you from filing. It's actually a violation of the law, but it is the reason for your separation from employment and other factors that determines whether you are entitled to benefits. But who should file in Colorado? As a federal employee, if your last duty station is listed in Colorado, file in Colorado. If your last duty station is another state, that's generally the state that you would file in. If you have had employment since being laid off from the federal government, you will need to file in the state of that employment. So in other words, if your duty station was here in Colorado, but somehow you last worked in Georgia, you would file in Georgia. We would ultimately transfer. We would get the wages in for the federal government, but those would be transferred to that Georgia claim. If you're a federal employee whose last duty station is outside of Colorado, but you've worked here since your federal separation, then you should file in Colorado. We would just need to know where the duty station was for the federal government in order to obtain those wages properly. Never really wait to file a claim. It always makes sense to file right away after your last day of work. That's because there's that 4 to 6 weeks of processing time on a claim. And we don't want you to say, I'm receiving compensation right now for prior weeks. I'm going to wait to file. I'm holding off, because then you're going to have a period of 4 to 6 weeks where you're out of funds and then waiting to see if we're going to ultimately pay you. Furloughed worker claims are a bit different. So again, they're a bit different than regular layoffs, but again, primarily in the aspect that we want you to file as someone who is returning to work. We are asking you on our website, when you were completing that on MyUI Plus, it asks you for a definite return to work date. And so many of you may get caught up or tripped up on that, because with the furlough, with the shutdown, you have no idea when that is. We are asking people right now to select January 5th of 2026 at this point in time. If you were somebody who had already filed a claim and you were furloughed and you checked the appropriate boxes that you were furloughed, which once you took you down to the layoff aspects, but you did not complete the job attachment aspect, we have gone back and we have tried to correct all of those for you so that you do not need to call our call center to say, I messed up, I need to be job attached. So we have tried to correct those for you, to apply the job attachment and to remove any denials that may have existed on some prior weeks there. All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Newcomb, who's going to walk you through some information specific to the federal worker scenarios, specific to some other questions we probably had related to what happens if I receive this, I'm called back and I receive back pay. So Jeff, I'm handing it off to you.
Sure, thanks, Phil. So federal worker scenarios, if you have been furloughed, when you file your claim, you will check the box that says you are out of work during the shutdown and select layoff. So it'll ask you some questions there. One of those is if you have that definite return to work date, you need to say yes to the return to work date. And when you add a proposed return to work date, use January 5th, 2026. That gives you the full 16-week period to be job attached, and you won't have to search for work if you're planning on returning back to work with your federal employer. You will have to pay back your unemployment benefits when you get your back pay from the federal government. And there have been some questions in the chat about taxes. When you pay back that money, you do have to pay the full gross amount of the payment for the week. So if taxes are deducted, you would still have to pay the full amount for that week. So that while we cannot give you tax advice, you can make your decision based on that if you're going to get back pay and have that taxed as well. So keep that in consideration. You will get a 1099-G form from us in January related to any tax information that you can use to file your taxes. So if you were furloughed initially and then laid off, if you had already filed a UI claim when you were furloughed, report that separation in your weekly certification. So each week you're going to file and request payment, and it will ask you if you've had a separation during the week. So if you get that notice during the week for which you're filing, go ahead and mark it that you have been laid off. Check that box as a layoff that says you're out of work due to the shutdown, then select the layoff option. Answer no to the return to work date if you have been laid off and not furloughed, and you'll need to search for work while you're getting benefits. If you were laid off before the shutdown, do not check the box that says you were laid off due to the shutdown. Answer those questions based on the circumstances of your separation, including whether you got any severance pay as a result of that separation. So the claim process, you will file your claim in our primary benefit system, which is called MyUI Plus. First off, you'll need to verify your identity with ID.me. You'll set up an ID.me account unless you already have one. That will be your single sign-on to get into the system each time you need to do any interaction with the claim or make payment requests. You'll add your email address and sign up for text notifications. Report any wages that you earn, including any from gig work that you may have taken up during the furlough or separation, and any separation pay that was paid to you, not for hours that you in earnings that you've already earned, but for any additional pay like severance, etc. You need to make sure that you respond ASAP to any follow-up questionnaires that we send you. You'll get a notification to your email that says that there's something that you need to respond to in MyUI Plus, so make sure that you do that as quickly as possible. You need to make sure that you meet all of your eligibility requirements, which means that you need to maintain your availability to return to work at any time, and you need to be physically able to return back to work at any time. We will make a decision within 4 to 6 weeks of filing the claim on your entitlement and eligibility for benefits. You need to request payment and maintain that eligibility every week. We recommend that you do it every Sunday. As soon as wages are added to your claim, there have been questions about when you can certify. You should certify every Sunday. It may not give you the link to certify until we've added those wages. And as soon as those get added, even if it's after a couple of weeks, every week will show up for you to click on request payment since the beginning of your claim. So that will pop up as soon as we get your claim established and ready to go. And you need to make sure that you disable pop-up blockers so that you can see your claim documents. So when we tell you to log in and look at claim documentation, or you want to look at something in your correspondences folder, they pop up as a PDF. So if you have a pop-up blocker on your web browser, it is not going to show up. So you want to disable those so that you can see those documents. So what you should know about the fact-finding and adjudication process, each UI claim is unique. So we have to do our due diligence to make sure that you're eligible for benefits. Your claim will have a number of issues that have to be investigated. So that's something like wages, reason that you're unemployed, identity, etc. We will reach out to both you and to your employer on those issues. If we ask you to respond, it's important that you do so by the deadline on the questionnaire. You may receive more than one questionnaire for each issue, depending on whether or not we require additional information. And if you do not respond, we have to make a decision just based off of the information that we have. So so make sure that you're very detailed in your responses and make sure that you get those in on time. You'll receive a determination on each issue. Determinations are decisions that will tell you how much and whether you get paid. Those will show up in your correspondence folder. If you want to appeal any of those decisions, you need to do so within the time frame that's stated on the determination letter, and instructions for those appeals are listed out on the pages after the actual decision itself. So make sure that you review those carefully. So unemployment compensation for federal employees is the type of unemployment insurance for federal workers. A big difference between regular UI and federal claims is how we verify the wages that you've earned. We need your wage information to help determine your eligibility for benefits. Typically, employers report the wages to the department every quarter. However, the federal government does not report your wages until you actually file a claim. At this time, we are actually getting quick responses from our government contacts when we request your wages. However, we may also need you to submit your proof of wages in case we are unable to receive a response. We will send you our ES 935 form, which is called the UI's Notice of Wages Reported and Possible Charges. Please fill out and return this to us immediately. Initially, this form may have no wages listed, and you may see a $0 monetary determination on your claim. Please use that form to report any missing wages to us. We do have contacts available to verify on the government side, but it's important that you return the ES 935 to us. Typically, we're getting wages added within 2 weeks. So additional information that we may need from you, as Phil had alluded to earlier, is the SF8, which is the UCFE program notice for unemployment insurance. It gives you or gives us your correct agency name and address to send our wage request to. The SF50, which is the notification of personnel action, wage and separation information we may need to determine your benefit amount. So it also lists your duty station where you should file. You may need to submit additional proof of wages if you don't get that SF50. That could be pay stubs, bank deposits, etc. We will request that information from you if we do not receive that response. If you have a mixed wage claim, it means that your wages will be a mix of federal and non-federal wages. So we will look at your wages for all the employers during that base period, which is the first 4 of the last 5 completed quarters. Your claim may take a little bit longer to process if you have additional employers that are out there. That means that while we're working on getting those federal wages and federal separation information, we also have to reach out to any other employer that's in that base period where you may have worked and earned wages. So next, how to upload documents into MyUI Plus. So there are 2 different recommended ways to upload your documents into your claim. The first one is to upload directly to MyUI Plus, and that's the best way to do that. For step-by-step instructions, you can go to our website here, which is cdle.colorado.gov/unemployment/file a claim. It will have step-by-step instructions on how to do this. And again, we're going to send out this slide deck and this recording will be available on YouTube after the fact if you need to go back and review. But you will go to the issue summary screen. And then that you can find that on the left-hand navigation. So on the left-hand side, you collect, and if you're going from a mobile phone, you need to hit the little 3-line hamburger menu so that you can open up that left-hand navigation. You'll click on View and Maintain Account Information, click on Issues and Determinations. That pops open the issue summary screen. You will click on the issue, which is the blue issue identification number next to your employer information there. And then it will take you to the issue detail screen. It says pending eligibility issue detail. And there is a checkbox on that screen that says click here if you would like to provide any additional documentation that is relevant for this issue. And that will allow you to go to the next step where you can actually do the upload. So if there is no upload, if there is no issue listed on your issue summary screen, then you will need to return your documents by fax number to 303-318-9014. Your ES 935 document includes a barcode that's personalized to your claim, and when you fax this page to us, it's automatically attached to your claim. I will note that if you can go to different locations to fax it through a fax machine, or you can look online for some programs that may be available to where you could do a digital fax from your computer at home without having to go take a trip somewhere. Mailing your documents will take much longer to get to us, so I would definitely recommend trying the online upload or using the fax option to get that to us so that it goes directly into your claim and notifies our staff to start processing. So if you are approved for benefits, you need to file your certification and payment request every week for each week that you'd like payment. Again, we recommend week runs Sunday through Saturday. So on Sunday morning, I would go right in and file that payment request for the previous week. Actively search for work every week if you're required to do so. So if you're one of those workers that was laid off and not furloughed and you do not anticipate returning to work with your employer, you'll be required to do an active work search. You need to be able and available to work. You'll need to report any earnings that you have during the week, including gig work. If you're doing DoorDash, Uber, etc., any type of side gig work that's not reported on a W-2, you do still have to report that. You can earn up to 50% of your weekly benefit payment without it impacting your benefits. After that, there's a dollar for dollar reduction in the amount that you would receive each week. And quickly respond to any additional information requests we may send to you. So back pay and repaying your UI benefits. Federal law requires back pay for the time that you were furloughed according to the Federal Government Employee Fair Treatment Act of 2019. If you receive UI benefits and then get back pay, you will need to repay those UI benefits back to us. So once you receive your back pay, you'll need to call our benefit payment control team, which is called BPC. You can reach them at 303-318-9035 or toll free at 1-877-464-4622. BPC team works Monday through Friday, and they will walk you through the process of reporting your back pay and work out those repayment options for you. And you'll want to make sure that you manage your claim in MyUI Plus. So in MyUI Plus, you file your claim, you do your weekly certifications and payment requests. That's where you respond to fact-finding questionnaires that we may send to you. You'll check your claim status, update your account information, reopen your claim, access your 1099-G, upload documents, and you can view claim decisions and other correspondence. And again, be sure to turn off any pop-up blockers on your browser so that you can view any correspondence that's in the claim. And I'll also promote that our virtual agent, if you contact our call center, is able to provide some specific information on your claim status and any actions that you need to take. So I will hand it back to Phil. I think you're muted, Phil.
I muted myself. I don't know how. Sorry. All right. So then for those of you who are furloughed, right, you may not be seeking work. You're not required to seek work, but we're not going to prevent you from seeking work if you elect to seek work. If you were laid off, quit, or discharged, obviously you need to be seeking work. So there's also additional reemployment support for individuals out there. So we ask that you explore our workforce development resources, either at Connecting Colorado, which is our state labor exchange, has about 106,000 Colorado job openings and 5,500 remote jobs posted. There's also resources for people experiencing a layoff through Colorado Rapid Response. The statewide workforce centers are an excellent place to go for assistance on personal job search support and coaching, resume development. They'll help you with interview preparation, job fairs, hiring events, etc. Hiring events, job fairs, and training sessions are also published on cdle.colorado.gov. There is also a registered apprenticeship program directory. Apprentices can earn while they learn and get hands-on experience in well-paying industries. And Civic Match, which explores potential or essential public service roles across local governments. So you may be able to find work elsewhere within a local government. All right, and Jessica, we're on to our frequently asked questions page at this point in time. So
Thanks, Phil. We're going to go ahead and answer some questions that we got in before the webinar, and then we'll get to our live questions. Thanks to our awesome team, we've already answered about 40 questions. So keep them coming, and we'll get to as many as we can in the next half hour. First question here for you, Phil. Should I wait to apply for benefits until I run out of money?
no, never. We'll put it short that way, right? You should apply for unemployment insurance right away after your last day of work. If you wait to file, you may not be able to get benefits for the weeks that you were out of work and didn't apply. So many times people will say, well, I waited a couple of weeks to file. Can I get paid for those prior weeks? We have to be able to establish good cause for somebody in order to collect those prior weeks. 9 times out of 10, if you exercised any control in that decision making, good cause doesn't exist, so you wouldn't receive payment for those prior weeks.
Thanks, Phil. And this question has come up a lot in the last couple of weeks in a variety of ways. But the question is, if we get unemployment and have taxes taken out, when we go back to pay it back, do we pay the full amount, including the taxes, or only pay back the amount we actually receive?
Sure, it's a good question, but remember the taxes were already taken out, that information has already been provided, and the tax information has already been provided to IRS, including the funds. So when you are overpaid, you're going to pay us back the gross amount that you were supposed to receive each week. And then related to taxes, you will receive that 1099-G next year in January, and then you would file that on your claim related to taxes then. And then if that related to an additional overpayment on taxes, that's how you receive that tax payment back.
Thanks, Phil. Next question. What happens if I don't search for work?
All right. We've covered it a couple times, but again, if you are furloughed, so in other words, you're only off as a result of the shutdown, you are considered to be job attached and are not required to search for work. Again, we're not going to prohibit you from looking for work if you so desire, but you are not required to look for work. If you were laid off, either through a reduction of force or you left employment, let's say you took that fork in the road, email, you took some other deferred compensation programs, you would not be job attached and you would need to search for work. And if you do not search for work, then you would not receive benefits during any of those weeks in which you were not searching for work.
Thanks, Phil. Since we've got quite a few questions in the Q&A and a few from our YouTube audience, I'm going to go ahead and skip to our live questions. Tracy, if you want to put up the resources screen for everyone to take a look at, we have a variety of resources on our website for y'all to refer back to after the session. Like I said, these slides will be included in a follow-up email and posted on our website. I'm going to start with a question from our YouTube audience. Phil or Jeff, this one's for you. What happens if we filed and didn't check the box yes that we are job attached?
Well, then correct. Good question. We tried to cover it earlier again. This is the one where the system believes you should be actively seeking work. However, again, if you checked all the other appropriate boxes that you're off due to the furlough and the layoff, we are going back and looking for those claims so that we can convert your claim to job attached so that you are not required to seek work. We're also looking for any weeks that may have been denied because you did not make that work search because you thought you were job attached but didn't complete all those tasks. And we are removing those disallowances at this point in time. What we're trying to do is keep you from feeling like you need to call in and call our call center so that we can keep those lines available for people who need to use the call center in order to file a brand new unemployment insurance claim.
Thanks, Phil. Another question from our YouTube audience that is a little bit related. What happens if they did select that they were job attached, but didn't use the January 5th, 2026 date? Do they have to call in to change that to reflect the January 5th date?
That's a real good question. The answer I'm going to give you says it depends. So if you have selected a date and that date has not come and gone yet, then you're still good with that date at this point in time. At some point, if that date comes and goes and you're still unemployed, in other words, the shutdown is still ongoing, in that case, you would need to contact us at our call center to try to get that extended at that point in time. We have not discussed any potential of maybe looking. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't potentially look at those proactively and find the ones that were job attached and see if we just wouldn't extend them out ourselves. I'm not going to make the promise on that, but again, it seems to me like we could do that proactively too.
Thanks, Phil. Here's a topic that we haven't covered in depth, but it's a good one for everyone on the call from our YouTube audience. Where can I go for retraining or certification to work in a different field than my current one?
It's a great question. If we go back to sort of the reemployment resources, we're going to encourage you to visit with our friends and partners at the local workforce center. They have all kinds of items available for you there. which could include the potential of discussing retraining. Again, will help you work on a resume. Some of you have not had to interview for jobs forever and a day, much like myself. And so that's a new skill. Sometimes it needs to be updated. So we would recommend that you make an appointment or visit your local workforce center.
Thanks, Phil. I'm going to hand this next one off to Jeff to give Phil a break. Jeff, the question is, I filed prior to the furlough and the government shutdown, uh, and the options were on the application, thus marking lockout. Will this person need to reapply?
Quick answer is no. You won't need to reapply. So if you had received a notice that you were laid off or unavailable, or that your job was ending potentially before the furlough officially started and you had already filed, we would have processed your claim from that point. So you do not need to refile your claim if you've already done so.
Thanks, Jeff. Phil, can you take this one? It has come up a couple of times and we've lightly touched on it. What happens if the government does not honor our back pay? Are we still required to pay UI benefits back?
No, it's a good question, right? There's lots of confusion. The federal law was written after the shutdown in 2018 that lasted 35 days, signed by President Trump, that had guaranteed back pay. However, there have been those conversations out there that they may not abide by or provide the back pay. There's an argument that there's some other mechanics need to go on for that to occur. So to answer your question, if you're off during the shutdown, you return to work and you never received back pay and you never provided back pay, you would not be overpaid any of those unemployment insurance benefits. Therefore, you would not be required to repay any of those unemployment insurance benefits.
Thanks, Phil. I have a question here for Jeff. Stephen asks, what effect does a federal pension have on payments?
So that really depends. What we need to do is take a look at any pension information that you receive. So if you're currently receiving a pension from an employer that's in your base period, there could be an impact. However, we can't give a direct answer to that because it depends on the circumstances. So if you are receiving a federal pension from an employer that is within your base period, you'll need to report that when you file your initial claim. We'll take a look at the information, send you a questionnaire to get some details about that pension. We may ask for some supporting documentation. So be sure to read the fact-finding questionnaire carefully, report that back to us, and our claims processors will take a look and issue a decision on whether or not the pension impacts the claim or not.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to toss this next one to Phil. Phil, the question is, while waiting for my claim to process, do I need to certify and request payment every week? If so, how do we do that?
So this will vary. If you had some mixed wages on a claim, you will have a link every Sunday that'll show up on your homepage that you would be able to certify for those prior weeks, or you would be able to contact the Cubline IVR system and do that. If your claim is currently insufficient qualifying wages, so I saw a lot of questions early on parties talking about, I was initially denied benefits. You were initially told the claim was ineligible because it didn't have qualifying wages. It's just waiting for having wages added. What will happen is when those wages are added, then those weeks will open up to certify at that point in time. We will look in the future on federal claims to change that process to simplify it for all of you so that you can follow the route that you would normally follow as a regular employer or separated individual from a regular employer. But at this point in time, if there's no wages on there, it's not going to show till the wages get added.
Jeff, I'm going to hand this one to you. The question is, I continue to get denied benefits. I am a furloughed government employee. My status is ineligible indefinitely. What should I do?
So what you'll need to take a look at is the decisions that were made on the claim. So follow the same path that we had talked about to upload documents. So go to that issues page within MyUI Plus, and it should tell you whether an issue was denied. And if it was denied indefinitely, you should have a decision related to that denial within your correspondence. If you disagree with the decision that's listed that is tied to that issue, you do have the right to appeal that decision if you believe that it's incorrect. If it's an indefinite denial for other reasons like monetary determination, if it says that you don't have enough monetary in order to get the claim processed, you'll get an updated determination once we add the wages to your claim. But if it's due to an issue on the claim and tied to a specific reason, there should be a decision in your correspondence explaining why you were denied and giving you instructions to appeal.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to hand this one off to Phil. We've gotten this question a few times, but at a high level, the question is, what happens if I am an accepted employee and I'm working 40 hours a week, but not getting paid?
Sure. And then this is the one where the information I have to give you is not good. You're not going to like to hear it at this point in time. So if you are working full-time but not getting paid, you're still fully employed. So by law, you're not separated from employment and you cannot receive unemployment insurance benefits for that week. That is both by law. Federal government also has sent out reminders to every state in a unemployment insurance program letter, reminding states of sort of the rules related to what constitutes a separation or not. So I understand why somebody would ask that question. You're not being paid, but you're continuing to work, but that means you're not separated from employment. Our law also requires that and defines full-time employment at 32 hours a week or more. Cannot have any changes to obviously that statute in any way, shape, or form to allow something different to occur, because then we would not be in compliance or conformity with the federal requirements for this program.
Thanks, Phil. Here's another high-level question. Maybe Jeff, you can take this one. I had hoped that the shutdown would be short-lived and have not filed yet. How do I get started? Is it better late than never? I'm hoping there isn't a penalty for waiting. Will this person be able to back pay to the start of the shutdown?
So typically, you don't want to wait to file. So I would say if you have not filed yet, I would go ahead and do so immediately. There's not a way to automatically go back. You would have to make a request with our customer support center if you are looking to file with a backdated date. However, I will caution you that we cannot guarantee whether you would be granted that, because you have to show that the reasons that you chose not to file earlier were beyond your control. So that's something that has to be a decision made by UI staff. So I would file your claim immediately to avoid any additional delays. And if you have additional questions about back weeks, please contact us.
Thank you, Jeff. Phil, I'm going to hand this one over to you. We have covered this, but it sounds like we need a little bit more clarity. I understand that we cannot give tax advice, but can you discuss the taxes again? If we choose to have federal and state taxes taking out, that will be reflected on the 1099, correct?
Correct. So you can elect to take just federal taxes out at a rate of 10%. You could elect to take just state taxes out at a rate of 4%, or you could take both out at 14%. Either way, it would reflect on that 1099-G that you would receive sometime late January for any benefits that are paid this year.
And I'll jump onto that too. And when we say you have to pay back gross taxes, net taxes, etc., gross means the total amount before any taxes were taken out. So you would have to pay, if you did have 10% taken out, you would pay the full 100% back to us when you receive back pay. And a question that came up in our previous town hall was whether or not you can change that tax election. If you had decided at first you wanted taxes taken out and now you decide you don't, or you wanted to change the mix of federal and state, you are allowed to do that one time per claim year. And you can do that within MyUI Plus, or if you need assistance with it, you can contact us.
Thanks, Jeff. Phil, we have a couple follow-up questions about the exempt on call status. We explained what happens if you have to work 40 hours a week. What if it is fewer hours? My current status is exempt on call, but I can only work a few hours a week, less than 10. Can I file for unemployment, or do I need to be asked to change to furlough status? Another question, a similar question, was what if I just get called in for 2 hours a week?
Sure. Sure. All right. So all of these are going to sort of depend. So if you were a full-time employee before, the furlough and you are still working full-time now, no, you are not going to qualify. You're not eligible for benefits. If you were intermittent on call before any furlough and you are still now intermittent on call, there's been no change in your employment status, so you're still not separated. If you were working some set number of weeks prior to a furlough, and now they have you furloughed to intermittent on call, yes, you would be eligible for benefits. What you would do during those weeks is you report the hours that you work and the earnings that you should have for those weeks. So there are a lot of variables there again. So basically it boils down to, if they have you doing stuff on a very similar schedule to what you used to do before, no. If that schedule has changed and has been reduced in some manner, yes.
Thanks, Phil. A new question that we're getting now. If I file for UI now, return to work after the shutdown ends, but then I'm RIFed shortly thereafter, does UI cumulatively only last 26 weeks?
I'll take it. That one was for me. Sorry. Yes, when you file an unemployment insurance claim, you establish two things. You establish a benefit year, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a 52-week period. And then you also establish a value on that claim to withdraw during that 52-week period. And the maximum at any point in time is 26 weeks on the claim. The only time that changes is if there are programs or incredibly high unemployment insurance rates. Right now, that doesn't exist. So the maximum is 26 weeks during a 52-week period.
Thanks, Phil. Jeff, maybe you can take this question. It's about repayment. If the government opens and back pay is received before I end up receiving my unemployment benefit, would we just not certify to receive payment to stop those unemployment benefits?
Yep, so that's a good question. If you've already requested payment, but for whatever reason the payment hasn't come, you can just pay that right back before you use it. If you have not requested any payments yet on your claim, and suddenly the government reopens and they give you your back pay, or you don't want to request or receive those payments, you can just not. If you stop filing and requesting payments on a weekly basis, it will make the claim go inactive. So you would only have to pay us back if you actually were sent payments. But once you make that payment request and it's in the system, there's not really a way to stop it from going out if the wages and everything process automatically. So I would just go ahead and stop requesting payment whenever you do, whenever the shutdown ends, and then that will stop the flow of any benefit payments going out to you.
Thanks, Jeff. We've got a couple new questions from our YouTube audience. We have covered this early on in the call and in the presentation, but can we revisit what happens when someone gets a wage determination that shows $0 for wage verification, and now their claim is ineligible? Will this change once my agency confirms my wages? What happens even if I supplied proof of those multiple times? How can I confirm that you've gotten that proof?
Yep, so I can take that. So when you file your claim, as we had alluded to the earlier in the call, federal government wages aren't reported to us quarterly, so we have to actually request them. So we do have contacts with the federal government agencies so that we can do that even though they are shut down. And so when you file your claim, it's going to say $0 available, and it'll say that you're monetarily ineligible for benefits, which basically says you haven't earned enough money. It will look like that and automatically update once it'll look like that to start. And once we do add wages to your claim, it will update and show you what that monetary amount is and what your maximum payable is, what your weekly amount will be. So it's a little nerve-wracking for folks because we know that that process is a little bit slower during a government shutdown. So while we are reaching out to agencies to get confirmation of those wages, that's why we are asking you to provide the proof of wages, fill out that ES 935 form and send it to us just as a backup. But typically, we are getting wage information in within 2 weeks. If we don't receive that wage information within 2 weeks, it will go into our workload, and we will have somebody contact you to get those wages unless you've already sent proof of wages with the 935, and we have that available. So unfortunately, there's not a easy way to look online to see that we've received it, but if you have sent it to us, especially if you've sent it using either the MyUI Plus upload or through that fax number, it automatically attaches on our side so that we can see them. So you should feel comfortable knowing that we will get that information and we process it typically within a couple of weeks. And for any outliers, if it's beyond that time, please contact us and we'll make sure to assist you and get that up to date.
And Jessica, I'll add just a little bit to this only because in our prior town hall, we had some questions on, well, how are you getting anything back if the government's closed down? So the Office of Management and Budget provided all 53 jurisdictions that provide unemployment insurance benefits with very specific lists of people that they guaranteed would be available to provide answers to wage requests and separation requests. And again, as Jeff has noted, this is also why it's very important that you complete and return that 935 to us, because if the federal government doesn't respond to us after 12 days, then we are free to utilize the information that you provided on at 935 to both add wages and consider the job separation related to that. So again, very important to complete that as soon as you get it. I think as we've talked about, you may have a claim that initially says it's worth $0. You are monetarily ineligible. You'll receive some information about an alternate base, but then you'll also receive that 935. And so you would want to complete that 935, send it back in.
Thanks, Phil. I'm going to hand one over to Jeff. This is a question that we've gotten in a few times in the chat. On the form, question 11 asks about payment received for annual leave. Should I deduct the amount I received for annual leave from my quarterly earnings totals, or should I include the full amount I earned each quarter and simply specify in question 11 the portion that came from annual leave? I want to make sure it's clear whether the annual leave payment is already included in the quarterly totals or needs to be listed separately.
We're looking at your total earnings, so we don't necessarily need to separate whether it was earnings through work or earnings through leave itself. So if it was paid to you, we just need to look at what that gross amount before taxes was that you received from your employer for each quarter. So you don't have to separate out the two separate, annual leave versus work hours. We're just more interested in how much you actually earned as income during that period to determine how much you would be eligible to receive and to determine that eligibility for benefits.
Thanks, Jeff. We did get a couple questions in about identity verification. Some folks have asked, is there anything they can do while they wait for their identity to be verified? Are there alternatives to ID.me? What advice do we have for those folks?
So a lot of you will, as I had mentioned, the first step in setting up your account through MyUI Plus is to go through ID.me for your identity verification. That also sets up your account access. So if you've gone through ID.me and you're able to get into MyUI Plus, your identity has been verified. It will not let you into MyUI Plus until your identity is verified. I think what a lot of the confusion that I'm seeing in the chat is related to, well, I thought I verified my identity, but when I look at the claim status tracker in MyUI Plus, it's saying that your pending identity verification or your identity has not been verified. That is due to the fact that your wages are probably not added yet. So the system doesn't update and clear out any of those pending identity verification issues until it determines that it's a fully established claim. So if you are able to get into MyUI Plus, that means that your identity is verified, and that progression will move over to to the next step in looking at your monetary and wage eligibility once the wages are added. So it's a little bit clunky within our system, but just to assuage any fears that you have about identity verification there, you do not need to worry. The alternative to ID.me, the only alternative to ID.me for ID verification would be for those that file their claim over the phone with us. If you do that, then you can either verify through ID.me after the fact, or we will give you instructions when you file your unemployment insurance claim with us over the phone to go to the U.S. Postal Service, to a USPS location, and we will provide you very specific information. So you can't just show up at a USPS location. You'll need the barcode information that we need to provide you so that you can take that there to get verified and verify your identity. But again, that's only for people that file their initial claim over the phone and do not do any transactions through MyUI Plus.
Thanks, Jeff. A quick time check. We have just over 5 minutes left, so we can fit in a few more questions. Here's one from a remote worker. Phil, the question is, I'm a remote worker and accidentally put my address instead of my agency's for employment verification. Is there a way to amend that response, or do I need to call into the call center?
I would say on that one, the best one is to try to call into the call center related to that. And need to specify exactly what happened, right? That you didn't have your duty station in there, but then you put down your physical location where you were performing work. Wherever your duty station is going to determine where your claim probably should have been filed. So hopefully your duty station was still Colorado, and then hopefully it can be a little more of a moot point.
Thank you, Phil. I know we've talked about this extensively, but we have a few questions from YouTube. At a high level, what can folks expect in terms of getting their wages verified, and how long should that take typically? I know it depends, but
Yeah,
Jeff,
it does depend. And as I've said, we reach as soon as you file the claim, we do reach out to those agencies through the contacts that we have. It's not as fast as it would be during times where we don't have a shutdown, but we are receiving responses. We've confirmed with the team that processes our federal claims that they are receiving those responses back. But yeah, typically, and at a high level, and keep in mind that there are outliers in different scenarios out there, and some of those agencies don't respond very quickly. Typically, we're getting those wages added within 2 weeks after you file your claim. Again, just to ensure that you're not one of those outlier scenarios where the agency doesn't respond back, please make sure that you are providing your proof of wage information and any documentation that we've requested for you as soon as possible once you get your claim filed, either through MyUI Plus or through the fax number.
Thanks, Jeff. It looks like we've nearly covered all of the questions in the Q&A. And as I say that, we just got another question in from YouTube. Can you talk about underemployment? I work part-time and have been told that I need to remain under 32 hours per week to remain eligible. Phil, can you take that one again?
Yeah, there's actually two components of it, right? So in order to remain eligible or to be considered working less than full-time, you have to be working less than 32 hours per week. But your earnings per week also must be less than whatever the weekly benefit amount is on your unemployment insurance claim. So if you're an individual that maybe only works 12 hours a week at this point in time, but your earnings are, let's say, $400 for that period of time, and the weekly value on your claim is $400, you're not eligible for payment during that week. If you work less than 32 hours and you earn less than the weekly benefit amount on your claim, you would be otherwise considered eligible for benefits provided you were able, available, actively seeking if so required. And again, the first 50% of that weekly benefit amount on yours doesn't even impact you. So in other words, if you had a $400 weekly benefit amount, the first $200 that you earned during that week, you still have to report it to us, but you would still receive payment for the $400. But once you hit that $400 amount, you receive nothing for the week.
Thanks, Phil. I think we have time for one, maybe two more questions. This one is about an accepted employee on call but not working. I just filed. The question is, my current application status is issue type discharged. What does that mean?
So there are two types of separations that the federal government uses for reporting purposes when we're reporting how these work. There's actually three types, but there's two that are really only commonly used: quits and discharges. So layoffs and furloughs are actually considered a discharge only from the aspect that it was the employer that initiated that action and not you. And so by that, the discharge for something that's a furlough or something that's a layoff doesn't mean the same thing as a discharge because you were fired from work. It has to do with reporting purposes related to that. So there will be reports that go to the federal government that end up being reported out by BLS. and it will capture the number of discharges that were layoffs, the number that were tied to other reasons. So again, if you were furloughed or laid off, it's not uncommon to see that discharged, only because that's tied to reporting purposes.
Thank you, Phil and Jeff and Brandon and Maria and Trish and Jason, everyone who's been answering questions in the Q&A. We are just about at time and cleared through all of our questions. We answered over 100 questions and even more than that when you count YouTube. Looks like we just got one more coming in about documents. We've covered that extensively, Mario, on this call. There's upload options and fax options. You can review that in the slide deck after we send it out later today. It'll also be published on our website. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Phil to close us out and say goodbye.
All right. We thank all of you for joining us today. We hope that it was informative. We understand that there's a lot of information that we spit out at you. We also understand that it may not necessarily cover some of the unique questions some of you may have desired asking today or still have related to your unemployment insurance claim. That is sort of, unfortunately, the nature of an unemployment insurance claim. As much as people think that every set of facts look identical, every claim is actually unique in how they are filed. So we hope we were able to provide you with an opportunity to get some of the information that you were hoping to receive and better understand part of the process. If not, obviously feel free to contact us at any point in time at the call center. They exist there also to answer some of your questions related to unemployment insurance benefits. At this point in time, Mondays and Tuesdays are a tough day to call. Obviously, it's easier to call during later on in the week if need be, if you have questions on that. Other than that, we thank you all for participating.